Well, in an unsurprising move, the Bank of Canada announced on Wednesday that it would hold interest rates steady at 4.5% following 8 consecutive rate hikes between March 2022 and February 2023. However, the governor of the central bank is stressing that inflation is still a concern. Tiff Macklem says price growth is easing quickly and will slow to about 3% this summer. Meanwhile, the economy is expected to grow modestly, even as inflation comes down. Recent surveys conducted by the Bank of Canada show consumers and businesses still expect inflation to remain higher than its own forecasts. Well, joining us now to help unpack all of this is Dr. Moshe Lander, Economist and Professor at Concordia University. Dr. Lander, welcome back to Forum Daily.
Hello.
Now, as we mentioned, many economists have already predicted this move to keep rates at 4.5%. Did we learn anything new from Wednesday's announcement?
Not really. I think that when we saw the comment that inflation remains stubbornly high and that we need to be vigilant and that there might be a further rate increase, that's maybe indicative that the Bank of Canada, where they're saying they expect inflation down to 3% this summer, it's maybe wishful thinking if they still think that there's an interest rate increase hidden somewhere in there.
Definitely interesting there. Now, how in line are the central bank's predictions of inflation falling to 3% mid-year and back down to 2% by the end of 2024? How in line are those predictions with the predictions of other economists?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's the Bank of Canada's predictions that matter more than the economists' predictions that matter. But I think that they are being optimistic to say 3% this summer and 2% by the end of the year. For whatever it's worth, I would say that it's 3% by the end of this year and 2% by early next year. But we're talking about a difference of a few months here or there. I think maybe what the Bank of Canada is maybe building into their forecast is that they see an economic slowdown coming that I'm not really anticipating is going to be particularly bad.
And you touched on this a little earlier, but as you said, Wednesday's announcements also indicated that the bank will monitor the effects of interest rates on inflation and keep the door open to more rate hikes if necessary. So, just how likely are we to see more rate hikes in 2023, Dr. Lander?
So it really depends on how fast that inflation rate comes down. So I don't think the Bank of Canada is necessarily going to move to increase interest rates if it remains above 3% into the fall, even though they said 3% by the summer. I think if they find that that's just not going to come down any further, if it starts to flatten out, if it looks like the earlier interest rate increases are not having their desired effect, that would precipitate an increase in the interest rate. What I did find interesting was that nowhere did they say that there's an interest rate decrease.
Definitely. Now we know it takes quite a few months for the impact of interest rates to trickle down into the economy. So, when are we to see the full impact of interest rate hikes that began in March of 2022?
So interest rate increases normally take about 18 to 24 months. And so the big summer increases last year, if you remember, those were the 50 basis points, the 75 basis points, the 100 basis points. If you add 18 months, that's the end of 2023. And so that's why I'm a little bit skeptical about 3% by this summer. But those earlier ones from early 2022 are almost fully felt now in the economy. And we've seen what it's done to things like the housing market and what it's done to create an economic slowdown, whether we're in a recession or not. We're certainly not growing the way that we were 12 months ago.
All right, Dr. Lander, let's touch on these concerns around a mild recession in 2023, or as you said, a potential economic slowdown. Are we definitely heading in that direction?
Well, we're slowing down. The technical definition of a recession, 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP. I always think that that's just a technical definition, right? If you have a job, your friends have a job, and your family have a job, I could tell you that we're in a recession and you wouldn't believe it. And if you don't have a job and your friends don't have a job and your family don't have a job, and I tell you that the economy is doing well, I don't think you'd believe it. So I think that the economy will slow down. Will it slow down into the technical definition of a recession? I don't know. But I don't think that even if we do have a recession, it's going to be a 20th century style recession. So I don't know that unemployment's going to jump, and I don't know that we're going to see a big drop in GDP.
All right, Dr. Lander, just about a minute left here, but when can Canadians expect to see some relief from these high interest rates? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by relief. Are we going to see interest rates fall to record lows the way they were 12 months ago? No way. Are we going to see that there's an interest rate cut coming? Probably not this year. I think that if it comes, it's going to come next year. But I don't anticipate that we're going to see big cuts because while we're at a 15-year high, it's only a 15-year high. And so there's lots of upside still. And so the downside, a quarter point here, half point maybe, but that's about it.
All right, lots to keep our eyes on. Again, Dr. Lander, thank you for your time today on Forum Daily.
Anytime.